You think you crushed that recent behavioral interview. The conversation felt natural, the interviewer was engaged, you felt great walking out, but then you got rejected. And if this has happened to you, you are not alone. The behavioral interview is getting more and more important and tougher in the age of AI, since Claude is generating all the code for us anyway. So if you failed in your recent behavioral interview, you probably believed one of the following 7 myths. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through what those are and then what you should have believed instead. Let's start with the biggest myth. Just be yourself. No prep is required. I get it. Behavioral interviews are supposed to be about you and your experience, and you feel like prep would be inauthentic or make you feel stilted, right? But here's the thing. That's exactly what is holding you back. Think about this. Would you ever walk into a system design interview and just be your natural problem solver, or like walk into a coding interview and just kind of wing the problems? No, you study the patterns. You practice articulating the trade-offs. You practice implementing the solutions, right? You prep to demonstrate specific competencies that you know you need to demonstrate in the interview. And behavioral interviews deserve the same kind of rigor. Even if you've done incredible work in your career in the past, you're still going to fail the interview if you can't talk about it, you can't articulate it well. You might not like living in the world like that, where you have to be able to explain what you've done in the past, but that's just reality. That's where we live. You need to know which stories demonstrate what interviewers are really asking about. You need to learn how to frame your stories so that you can highlight the impact that you delivered, and you need to practice delivering them concisely and under pressure. And guess what? That is not just good for interviews. These are also the skills that help you advocate for promotions or talk about what you've done in front of leadership and help you communicate on the job. Coming across authentic obviously matters, but authenticity without any kind of preparation is just winging it. Don't do that. Here's myth number 2. I'll prep some answers to specific questions like, tell me about a conflict with a PM, or describe a project that's behind schedule. The reality is that behavioral interview questions are incredibly varied. You never really know what you're going to be asked. So instead of memorizing answers to specific questions like you might do for a coding interview, understand what interviewers are looking for, those underlying signals like ownership, scope, communication. Go bottom up, starting with who you are in your career. Identify those stories that best represent your own career and send the signals that are most relevant to hiring you. You don't need 30 prepared stories from your past, okay? You really just need 4 or 5 strong stories that you can adapt to different questions. Then you need to know how to tell those key stories in ways that demonstrate competency. If you want to learn how to identify key stories, decode the question so that you can adjust your story to what they're asking and then figure out how to deliver them in a way that doesn't bore your interviewer, get the book or the course I talk about. The links are in the description down below. One well-chosen story about driving a complex project can provide evidence for ownership, for technical depth, for collaboration, for handling ambiguity. The goal is flexibility in conversation with your own career, not memorization of what the interviewer is going to ask you. Myth number 3 is that STAR is all you need. Situation, task, action, result, that's it. Search for behavioral interviews online and you'll find hundreds of articles all about STAR. It's like it's some kind of silver bullet, right? Not quite. Here's what STAR gets right. It gives you a basic structure. You have a beginning, a middle, an end, helps you avoid rambling, and it puts you ahead of somebody with absolutely no prep. That's good. Here's what STAR doesn't tell you. Which stories to choose, or how to position yourself for that top tier company that you really want to work for, or what kind of scope signals senior versus mid-level engineer. How do you adjust your approach to recruiters versus hiring managers versus partner interviews? There's a lot more than just STAR. STAR, or something like it, I like Carl, context, action, result, learning, but whatever, is just table stakes, just the minimum structure that you need. It's not everything you need to prepare for a behavioral. Here's myth 4, and it's the most destructive one because it stops candidates from preparing at all. Behavioral interviews are subjective and arbitrary, and there's no point to preparing. Look, I get it. Behavioral interviews feel more subjective than coding interviews. There's no compiler, there's no test cases, right? The interviewer is a human, and humans are biased, and I get all that. Here's something candidates don't often realize is that big companies have invested heavily in making behavioral evaluations as objective as possible. They train interviewers to look for specific evidence. They use structured rubrics that define what strong looks like at each level, and they calibrate across interviewers to ensure consistency. When your interviewer is conducting your behavioral interview, they're not just asking, do I like this person? They're asking, what evidence have I seen that this candidate can perform at the level that we're hiring for? There are 8 specific signal areas that they're going to look for. They're well defined, even if they're uniquely framed by a specific company in a different way. I talk about these in other videos and on my Substack. Go check it out. Behavioral interviews are predictive. Companies use them because they work to understand how your past behavior is a predictor of your future performance. So when you fail, it's usually not because the interviewer arbitrarily just didn't like you. It's because you didn't provide the evidence that they needed to hire you. Myth number 5. Oh, I'm naturally charismatic. I tell great stories. I can just wing this. Some of you are naturally engaging in conversation. Some of you maybe just think you are. Maybe you do connect really easily with people and you think that those skills are going to translate directly into behavioral interviews. And they partly do, but not in the way that you think. Here's a difference. Your college roommate or your buddy at the bar doesn't care if your story demonstrates appropriate scope for a staff engineer, okay? But your interviewer does. A compelling story about a technical challenge that you overcame might be fascinating or interesting to listen to, but if it's a solo project and the interviewer is evaluating you on collaboration, it's not going to help you. Maybe you have an engaging narrative about how you navigated some kind of complex organizational politics. Maybe it's a really juicy story. But if you spend like 8 minutes setting that up, the interviewer is going to get bored. They're going to not get to their other 3 questions they wanted to ask you, and you're not going to get the signal across that you need to in order to get hired. Natural communication skills obviously help, but they're not a substitute for understanding what evidence to deliver in each story, choosing those stories strategically to have that evidence available, and then structuring those responses to be evaluated in an interview context. You need both. You need good storytelling ability and a strategic understanding of what the interviewer is actually hunting for. Myth number 6 is, I'm applying for junior roles. The bar has to be lower. I should just focus my prep only on coding. This misconception is going to cost you a lot of new grads. Here's the world that we're living in right now. Competition for junior roles is even fiercer than for senior roles. It's a tough market right now. You're competing against a lot of candidates with internships at top companies, with strong academic projects, and candidates who prepared well for behavioral interviews. While the bar for scope and complexity is lower at junior levels, the behavioral interview is often weighed more heavily than you think for junior roles. And why is that? Because companies are making a bet on your trajectory, not just on your current skills. They're asking, is this person an AI native? Can this person grow? Do they take ownership? Do they learn from mistakes? Can they collaborate effectively? The stories that you tell might be smaller in scope, like a class project or an internship or hackathon, but the evidence you need to demonstrate it is the same, and you need to understand what that evidence is. Because you have less experience to draw from, you need to be even more intentional about choosing and delivering the stories that you tell. It's pretty simple. Junior candidates who prepare outperform junior candidates who don't prepare every time. Here's the final myth. The hiring manager is just looking for social fit. They just want to see if I can mesh with the team, and chemistry is all that really matters. Yes, when a hiring manager is conducting your behavioral interview, they do want to see if you'll work well with the team, and chemistry does matter, but that's not all. It's not even the primary thing. They're trying to predict how you'll perform in the role. Social fit is actually the easier bar to clear. Most qualified candidates can probably have some kind of pleasant conversation with the hiring manager. What separates successful from unsuccessful candidates is demonstrating the competencies required for the role. Things like, can you own ambiguous problems? Can you influence without authority? Can you make sound technical decisions under constraints? Can you navigate complexity of the organization, complexity of the code base? Your interviewer is not asking themselves, would I enjoy having a lunch or a beer with this person? They're asking, can I trust this person to deliver business value with technology on my team? This is why just trying to be yourself and connect on the chemistry level is insufficient. You need concrete evidence of your capabilities from stories that are strategically chosen that demonstrate those kinds of signals that they're evaluating. If you've been operating under these myths, don't worry, there is a solution. Now that you know better, here's what actually works. You need to use a decode, select, deliver framework. You need to first decode, that is, understand what the interviewers are actually asking and evaluating. Every behavioral question is hunting for some kind of specific evidence. Understanding what they want changes everything else about how you respond. The second thing is select. Choose your stories strategically. Make sure you have 4 to 5 well-developed stories that demonstrate clear growth and impact from your career. Make deliberate choices about which experiences to share and how to frame them. And the third thing is deliver. Structure your responses to set the context efficiently, walk through all the actions that you performed with a lot of clarity, quantify results that really matter, and demonstrate that you have genuine growth and introspection through this process. It's not complicated, but it is intentional, and that's exactly why most candidates miss it. If you're currently interviewing or you plan to soon, I've created a complete guide to this process in my book, Mastering Behavioral Interviews, along with real examples at different career levels and advanced techniques for making sure that your stories resonate with FANG interviewers. The link is in the description down below. And if you like listening to my voice, then I've prepared an in-depth multi-hour course all about behavioral interviews, hosted exclusively by Hello Interview. Check out their premium membership to get that, plus all their other amazing content. Stop preparing for the behavioral interview you think you're going to get. Start preparing for the one that you're actually going to get. If this video helped you, then help me by hitting the subscribe button and the like button so that you don't miss the next videos that I have. Thanks for watching.